Hey everybody, Mitch with Smedley Plumbing here, and one of the common questions that we get out in the field when we're talking with customers about water heater options and things for their home is they'll ask us, what do we have in our own homes? So I wanted to take a few minutes and go over the water heating system and some other neat water features that I have in my own home. First off, I have geothermal heating and cooling. And what geothermal heating and cooling is we have 4 wells in our front yard where we have glycol loops that go down into the front yard, and those loops get acclimated to the Earth's temperature, and then we bring that coolant or that liquid back in and run it through a heat pump. That's all part of my heating and cooling system. However, a byproduct of geothermal heating and cooling is free hot water. And so first, I'm going to point out my hot water tank that is run from my geothermal system. This is just a standard electric water heater, but there's not even wires going to the top of it. And how this tank gets heated up is from my heating and cooling system. Every time my heating and cooling system turns on, it creates heat. Well, there's some water piping, this pipe here and then one down here. This water piping loops around my heating and cooling system and picks up some heat and then runs that heat back into this tank. And so every time my furnace or air conditioner kick on, I get a little bit of free hot water. And so this first tank gets warmed most of the way for free from my geothermal system. Then the hot water or warm water leaves this tank, moves across over to here, and runs into my actual water heater. And this is just a standard water heater. It's the same water heater I would put in anybody else's home. It doesn't need to be all that fancy because the water that's going into it is warm. It's not cold water, again, because of my geothermal system. So this tank here completes the heating cycle, make sure it's actually 120 degrees before it runs out to my house. The reason I need this one is because we're in the Midwest and our temperatures range anywhere from 100 degrees in the summer down to 0 or -5 or whatever in the winter. And so as we go through the spring and the fall periods, my furnace and my air conditioner aren't doing much work. And so if my furnace and air conditioner aren't on, then I don't get any free hot water. So I need an actual water heater to make sure that that's happening. Now, in the dead of summer or in the dead of winter, on both of those extremes, this tank gets really, really warm. And as this tank gets really warm, this tank almost does nothing. One other feature with this tank is I do have whole home hot water recirculation. So way up here, we have a pump with a timer on it. And this pump is bringing lukewarm water back from all of the extremities of the house and putting it back into the bottom of this heater. And as you can see, it comes down and goes through a check valve and then right into the bottom of the heater. So what that does is that makes sure I have hot water at all my fixtures at a moment's notice. So I don't have to wait for hot water. The moment I turn on my kitchen sink, it's hot. The moment I turn on my bathroom faucets all the way up on the 2nd floor, it's hot. So it's kind of cool to not have to wait for hot water. Back on the wall, you're gonna see some red and blue and some white piping. And the blue lines are all of my cold lines. And I'm kind of a hybrid manifold system. So I've got a 3/4 inch cold line and a 3/4 inch hot line going to every bathroom group in my home. And you can see them kind of labeled on there. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but we've got like master bathroom and laundry and half bathroom and kitchen. And I actually have a urinal in my garage. That's kind of cool. So I got a cold line going to that. All of the different fixtures in the home are fed from that piping. And I can turn those valves on and off as I need if I need to service one of those bathrooms individually. The white lines, this is where it gets kind of cool. In our home, we actually have a gray water reclaim system. And I was one of the first in the area to put one of these in, designed the whole thing myself, got it all approved with our local code administration and everything. But what the gray water reclaim system does is it allows me to reuse bathtub and shower drain water to flush all of my toilets. So let's show you how all this kind of works. It's kind of neat. So up in the ceiling, we've got two lines coming down, and those come from all of my bathtubs and showers in the house. And they come down through this valve. This valve's actually closed right now. But they come down through this valve, and then they come into a filter assembly that's hiding inside these two cleanout accesses. Once that water goes through the filter pulls out, you know, anything that might go down the drain, like hair and stuff like that. So once it goes through the filter, it sits in this 55-gallon tank. And from this tank, we actually have a pump that comes over here, and then this pump grabs that water, goes up, and feeds into one side of my toilet manifold. So all of those white lines you see, those run to all the toilets in the home. We have 4 bathrooms, so there's four lines for 4 toilets. And so when this system is up and running, I am reusing my bathtub and shower drain water to flush all of my toilets. So I'm not having to buy city water at all to flush my toilets. It's actually really, really cool. Now, one thing you may notice is, like I said over here, this valve was closed. This valve down here is closed. The pump is actually unplugged. And then the pump feed into the manifold, that valve is closed. So right now I actually have the system turned off. And the reason for that is when I put this in my home, it was kind of an experiment. I wanted to see what can and can't you do with gray water reclaiming. What we did with all of that was I had the system fully up and operational for 4 or 5 years, and I even put a water meter on the outlet of the pump to see exactly how much water I was saving each month. And on average, I save about 1,000 gallons of water a month by recycling my bathtub and shower drain water to flush my toilets. That seems like a really, really impressive number, and it is. However, in our area, water is really, really cheap. And so with water being as cheap as it is here, 1,000 gallons of water was only costing me about $6 a month. And there's some maintenance that goes on with a system like this. We have to clean the filter from time to time. This tank will get cleaned from time to time. Even though it is soapy water that's coming out of your bathtubs and your showers, it still has a lot of oils and stuff from your skin, and it can develop a little bit of a smell or an odor if you store too much of it. That's why this tank is so small, is you don't want to store too much of it. So, you know, I was in a routine of cleaning and everything else, but then when you run the math and you find out that it's only saving you $6 a month, I've turned the system off just because it wasn't worth it to me. However, we did prove that you can save substantial amounts of water by gray water reclaiming. For us, with a family of 4, and at the time I turned this off, my kids were like toddler age, we were saving 1,000 gallons a month. That would be even more now that my kids are quite a bit older. So where gray water reclaiming really makes sense is going to be more in commercial applications where the price of water is much higher, and they're doing a lot more toilet flushing and a lot more showering and things like that. So fitness centers and health clubs would be ideal for some reclaimed water situations there. That is, in a nutshell, everything that a master plumber of 20 plus years has in their basement. One of the other common questions I get is tankless. Why don't you have a tankless water heater in your home? Tankless water heaters are pretty cool, and why wouldn't a plumber have a tankless water heater? Well, the main reason I don't have a tankless is because I get so much hot water for free. And tankless water heaters do not like hot water going into them. Tanklesses need to increase the temperature of water a fairly large amount in order to work really, really well. So I would actually be hurting a tankless water heater if I installed it here and then had this tank with 100 or 120 degree water going into the tankless. There's not enough temperature rise there for it to work properly. So that's in a nutshell why I don't have a tankless in my own home. But instead, I've got two 50-gallon water heaters that work really, really well. So that in a nutshell, explains everything that I've got going on in my house with my own plumbing. So if you ever wonder what's in a plumber's home, now you know.